So one time, I was walking through a busy market one afternoon, the kind where every stall smells the same and yet differently. The smell full of spices, the fresh vegetables, the incense, the cloth, and the people were moving like a river, converging and diverging, flowing through the narrow lanes of the market. Among all this, my eyes caught a very small shop at the corner, a very humble textile stall, and there was a very large bucket of dye, as ripe as you can say a red pomegranate. It is perfectly red color, and that's how the busy market usually looks in India. The countless people buying unnumbered items, especially in the Delhi market, and I happened to be in that place that particular day. It was a day I just decided to go to the market. Although I'm not a fan of these kind of a market full of people, I would simply prefer some place or maybe somewhere else where I will have the peace of mind. And it's perfectly okay for me to pay for the extra such kind of arrangement for the market for the price of the product itself. In the market, I saw a very young guy, a young apprentice working in a shop, barely out of his teen, and he was dipping some pieces of cloth into it in a bucket full of red color. White fabrics, pure and soft, waiting for their turns to become garments. He dunked one piece after another and swirled it gently in a circular manner, then he hung it to dry. And he did it particularly that particular moment from time over and over again. Took a fresh and completely soft blank piece of fabric, dipped into the colors based upon the requirements of the customer, and processed it, and one after another he continued his job. And then I realized each piece of cloth once immersed carries the dye in his every sense of his fiber. That one touch, that one immersion decided its color forever. Even after it dried, even after it was cut, sewn, and washed, the essence of that particular dye in which that particular piece of cloth was dipped in stayed within. And that color, that single dip, did more than just to define the cloth's appearance. It dictated its destiny, whether it should be chosen by the customer or not, whether it should be cherished or rejected. Its entire life hung on that particular hue, the color. I noticed how in India, even the smallest preferences carried such a deep cultural resonance. You can walk to the east, and the woman leaned towards vibrant oranges, the fiery reds, the bright hues for their daily wear, colors that seem to capture the sun itself. Such bright colors. You travel to the north, the palette softens, the pastel shades, the gentle creams, the muted tones, subtly woven into the everyday of life. And this is how the culture aspect of the Indian people are related to the color of the cloth. And it does not stop there. The selection of the color shifts the purpose with the occasion itself. Daily wear usually favors the understated shades, the calm and versatile colors, blending seamlessly with the routines and the wedding and the festivals and the celebrations. Then they usually seek the brilliance and the sparkle or the audacity of the colors, the bright pinks, the deep maroons, the electric blues. Colors that enjoys, colors that honor tradition, mark their presence. They prefer those colors, punchy, bright blue colors. Even in the simplest choices of the cloth carries the weight of culture, mood, and some unspoken expectation of the people. And there I was, standing in the market, physically scanning the rows of fabric, feeling the texture beneath my fingers, the play of light across the folds of the color, the subtle shimmer in some, the matte of depth in others. And yet my mind has drifted far, far, far away from the market. My eyes were witnessing the clothes, but my consciousness was observing life itself. I saw the human mind reflected in every thread, every dye, and every pattern. How early impression the colors we were dipped into by our own parents, by the society, by the circumstances dictate not just what we become, but how the world receives us. And I realized, as the market continued around me, that most of us go through life like that of a cloth, unaware that our first dip, our first influence can decide our own choices, our own acceptance to the market, to the society, even our joy for the decades to come. And this is the nature of life and nature of man. And just like that piece of a cloth, we are much, much, much similar and impressionable. So I say today in this podcast, we are living the life of borrowed assumptions. A man working through difficulties of his own life, when he got and cheated so many times of his life, maybe by his parents, maybe by his friends, maybe some stranger looted him and cheated him. The days of his own teen when this or that particular girl cheated on him. This accumulation of the resonance simply makes him say the world is full of cheaters, the deceivers, the deceptors. And the very first thing that he will be teaching his kids would be the same fact. My son, be aware of the world. It is full of cheaters. They will loot you. They will take money from you. They will cheat you. This is the very first thing that that particular person, would be teaching his son or daughter. And just like a piece of cloth in the market, the child is as impressionable as the piece of cloth getting dipped into the bucket full of colors. But we have been told in the scripture itself, and these are not my scriptures, these are own scriptures. In the Aṣṭāvakra Gītā, a very profound dialogue between King Janaka and the sage Aṣṭāvakra, it tells us, it declares, one who identifies as free is indeed free. One who identifies as bound is indeed bound. Whatever is one's thought or conviction becomes one's destiny. Again, if you see the Bhagavad Gītā, chapter 17, verse 3, a person is made by his faith. As his faith is, so is he. And this is your own scripture. The childhood is the platform where a person first receives the impression of the world. It is here in the childhood, in this particular childhood, in this very earlier year of the child, that the mind is most pliable, most absorbent, like a piece of cloth, waiting to be dyed. But what colors the clothes are rarely the child's own choices. They are the assumptions, judgment, fears, and the beliefs of those around them that are being impressioned upon the kid itself. Let it be parents, teachers, friends, or the society. They'll simply leave their fingerprints on the tender fabric of the young mind. And without knowing it, child assumes these borrowed colors as his own. And sooner or later, the world outside seems to confirm these early impressions. A young boy who was told repeatedly that the world is basically full of cheaters and full of deception, that people cannot be trusted. He carries these assumptions in his own adulthood. He navigates every relationship cautiously, prepares for the betrayal at every turn, and even teaches his own son or children the same vigilance, believing that he is protecting them. And just as the cloth dyed in the market, which completely retains its very first color for his rest of the life, so too does these child of the man carry these inherited assumptions, shaping his own destiny, coloring every thought, every deception, and every decision, and every perception of his own reality. And that's the nature of man, and that's life. If I were to speak over wealth, for an instance, the saying goes like this: the poor get poorer, and the rich get richer. I hope you must have heard this particular line. Economists can supply endless model statistical probabilities, maybe some historical patterns, to support this observation that the poor get poorer and the rich get richer. Yet these are just made out of the facts of the world, the outer symbol of the causes. The real architect of your own experience is not the world of facts. It is your own inner world, your own assumption, and your own awareness. If your scriptures are true, if you accept them as a living truth, they simply declare a person is made by his faith, as his faith, so is he. Stated in the Bhagavad Gītā, chapter 17, 3rd verse. And also in the Aṣṭāvakra Gītā, chapter 1st, 11th verse, the one who identified as free is indeed free. And the one who identified as bound is indeed bound. Whatever one's thought or conviction becomes one destiny. And also if you look into the West in the Bible, like your faith, be it unto you. You go east, west, north, south, all the scriptures of the world, they always and always say one thing: that a person is made by his faith. As is his faith, so is he. Do you see that pattern? The child carries faith, but it is borrowed. It is usually faith in scarcity, maybe in faith in limitation, in fear, or maybe in other people's judgment. The mind accepts these assumptions as true. When you're a kid, maybe when you're in the adulthood, you accept these assumptions as true, and the life completely unfolds in the perfect obedience to them, to your own assumption. And the child and the kid, he suffers, he blames, he fights against the circumstances of life, all the while unaware of his own inner conversation. He silently held assumptions that is usually changing his own life, that is changing his own destiny, that is dictating his whole life. Consider the society itself. We inherit so much ideas about success, failure, and morality, and the love from the movies and the friends and the neighbors and the news. Some are subtle, like the color of a dress, which is proper or which is not, which is in fashion, which is not, and the type of food we eat, and the way a man or woman should behave. Others are more you can say weighty in nature, more heavy. The ideas about money, status, and relationships, and the human nature itself, and all are internalized as truth. And as long as we live from them, those assumptions, our lives are echoes of others' voices, because we have borrowed from others' assumptions, from our friends, from our family, from the movies. The profound secret here is very simple. Your life is the canvas of your own assumptions. What is yours? What is borrowed? Who are you in reality? Beneath the layers of inherited thoughts that you have inherited throughout your life, behind the opinions that you have automatically assumed about yourself, there lies you, the real awareness of being, that is I am, not the assumptions that you have borrowed from the people who are trying to protect you. And that's the sad reality of the life itself. To observe, to feel, and to return to yourself, to live from assumptions chosen by you, not handed down by the others, is the real intent of the life, the real spirit of life. And after this podcast, if somehow I can suggest you to go to your own childhood, even for the brief moment, you look closely what assumptions you have carried from your own childhood, from your parents, and you have never dared to question them. You are living exactly up to those assumptions. If you can be critical about yourself, you can lie to yourself, you can lie to me, you can lie to anyone else. But if you're critical of your own self, if you look closely what kind of assumptions you've been holding towards your own life, which was given by your parents, your life is exactly cutting out same figure as per your own assumption. I have heard parents saying to the kids, money does not grow on trees. One has to do such and such of hard works. Money doesn't grow on trees. You must work hard. A house takes years to earn. You need a degree to succeed. Be careful. The world is full of risk. They are full of cheaters. And the most children accept these statements as truth, as the truth of their own life, silently filling them away in the vault of their own consciousness. They grow up assuming the world is scarce, difficult, unforgiving, and so the life appears just as they have been taught by their own parents: hard, slow, and very limited. But observe the world today. Look at the 13-year-old making thousands and thousands and millions of dollars online through the social media, selling digital art, gaming, teaching skills, no degree, no formal training whatsoever, and yet buying gadget experiences and even homes for themselves or even their parents, before even reaching the age of legality in that particular country. The difference between this child and the one who repeats the old warning is not the opportunity. It's the assumption of the life itself. One child assumed the limitation and other assumed the possibility. One was died with the cold of fear and other with the curiosity, creativity and a faith in their own inability. Look at the artists, the musicians or the writers who came from the household that usually said you must become a doctor, maybe engineer. Art won't feed you. And yet someday to live differently. They assumed a life of expression that was possible. Today their music and their painting and their books not only sustain them, they touch millions, inspire communities and leave a legacy behind beyond the practical safe of life. Consider the young athlete whose parents said sports won't make you maybe fit for a living. No. Focus on studies, be safe, and yet by assuming their skills and dedication could carve a path for them, by refusing to fully inherit the limitations whispered to them by the society or the parents, they have acclaimed an international name. Their lives are the proof that faith in one's inner assumption reshapes reality. Even in the daily life, the simplest things reveals the contrast. A child told, "You are shy, you cannot speak." As adults, they avoid opportunities, social gatherings, promotions and relationships, and yet a peer of the same age, encouraged even subtly to explore, maybe express, to act and to blossom into confidence effortlessly. The difference is an internal assumption, the color they choose to have there for their own fabric of life, not borrowed by others, not borrowed by the parents or the societies. So I would like to request you just pause now, go back, look at your younger self and ask, which belief is mine? And which beliefs are borrowed? Which color stains my clothes and which color do I wish to dip into now? And you would find, if you're really critical about yourself, all the assumptions about life and the facts about life which you believe to be true about the life itself has been borrowed by someone else. These are not yours to begin with. A man is limited by his own imagination and the freedom lies in the exactly same, your own imagination. Yet most remain unaware of this truth, clinging to the same belief and the notion they inherited from the parents, maybe from teachers and societies, much like a piece of cloth in the market, which absorbs the very first color it touches and carries that color for his rest of his life. We absorb these assumptions and they dictate the very trajectory of our own destiny in existence. Let me take you to the Bihar, a state in India. For instance, a state often portrayed as a struggling economic and educational metrics, yet mysteriously prolific in producing IAS officers. It is the only state which is producing highest number of IAS, Indian Administrative Service officers in India. Certain districts like in Bihar, like Sahasra and Begusarai, they usually have the highest density of IAS, the highest line of officers in government of India. And this is particularly astonishing fact when you consider the toughness of that particular civil service examinations, the preparation, the perseverance, the competition, the socio-economic constraint in this particular area of Bihar. Yet they are producing the highest number of IAS officers. But pause here. What is the difference between these child and the others who never attempted the civil services? No. It is not diet, it is not the resource, not the coaching center or the privilege. The difference is faith. In these communities, children are raised on the belief of very firm, unwavering and unquestioned belief that they can become IAS officers. Their parents, their elders, the teachers never whispered limitations onto them. Instead, their message was, you are capable. You can achieve this. And this belief is embedded early in them, just like a dye in the cloth, saturated in every fiber of their own identity. And as our own scripture affirms, as his faith is, so is he. The faith reshapes your reality. Now, with contrast to this, with the mindset of the majority, you can go to the market and meet some people. And if you ask people today, can you become an IAS officer, the civil servant, most will smile and maybe nod their heads. They will say it's nearly impossible. I cannot become it. It's foolish. They'll claim that it is a chance to become an IAS officer. It's purely based upon luck, maybe some game. If they are lucky, that's why they're becoming IAS officer. It's really tough examination. But these are the facts of the world. Every physical effect has a spiritual cause. And that spiritual cause is your own awareness of being. That is, I am. Do you see the truth? The difference is not in reality, but in assumption. One child sees an IAS officer as a natural possibility for him, and other sees that maybe some kind of a near miracle thing. One grows up rehearsing success, and other rehearses limitations. One becomes inspired action, and other remains trapped in his own assumption about life that is borrowed by his own parents. Our lives are not accidents. They are the external expressions of our own inner convictions. And most of these convictions are borrowed by parents, borrowed from parents, maybe society, media, and culture. They are opinions that we have accepted about ourselves without questioning them. Now we are living them as our own reality. So I ask you now, what color did your cloth absorb? What assumptions are you carrying, inherited, and you have remained it unquestioned for them? And if you were to consciously choose a new color, a new belief, a new assumption, what would your life become? So I tell you today, the life you are living is borrowed. Yes, it is borrowed. Your thoughts, your fears, your assumptions about what is possible, what is deserved, what is true, they are not your own. You have absorbed them unconsciously from your own parents, the teachers, the society, and your culture. And a borrowed thing always comes with a price, and that price is interest. And you're paying it day and night. Every corner of your life, your relationship, your career, your health, your peace of mind. You're laboring under debts. Yet you feel them weigh upon you. Every frustration, every disappointment, every fear, these are compounded cost of your own assumptions that were never yours to begin with. You have borrowed from someone else, but you're paying the price. You're paying the interest as well. And if I had to tell you, and if I usually tell this to any man, they would simply laugh. They would insist that the world is to be blamed. That the parents, the circumstances, the government, maybe luck, maybe fate, they blame them. They call themselves religious, but they have never paused to even read their own scriptures, to reflect, to understand the word of their own scriptures. Yet the answer has always been out there in the scripture. The law always has been written as very clearly. As you assume within, so it manifests without. And now, I believe I have shown you what your own scripture says. I have illuminated the mechanism, the borrowed life, the invisible debt, the assumptions that govern your own experience. Now the question is very simple yet profound. Will you believe it? Will you pause long enough to see that the chains are not outside, but it is within? That the authority over your life does not lie in the world, but in your own mind, in your own assumption, in your own faith. Would you believe it? Because until you do, you will continue to live this borrowed experience from the borrowed assumption, paying interest on the debt that was never yours to begin with, and wondering why it feels to live this life so heavily. Why it's so heavy? Why it's so limiting? Why it's so unfair? Because the moment you see it, the moment you take ownership of your own assumption, the loan is forgiven. the interest ceases, the borrowed life dissolves, and you begin to live for the first time fully, freely as your own self. In the real life, if you take a loan, you start to pay it, and suddenly, due to a change of your own mind or heart, you do not wish to pay it, but you will be compelled to do it. But may I tell you, the interest of your life, of your own assumption, of your own borrowed assumption, you can stop it right here, right now, and you will not be under of any kind of compulsion to pay it. So coming to the practical aspect or side of the podcast, if you take this seriously, if you take your scriptures, your own scriptures so seriously, and you have identified the limiting beliefs, the limiting assumptions that you have been carrying throughout your childhood, and now your life look exactly like the same because your life is your own assumptions outpictured. Now you do not want to pay the interest or pay the debt at all. You want to change your life. If I were you, if I have been given that particular assumption when I was a child, that does the money grow on tree? It takes so many years to get to this position to earn this kind of a money. And I have been handling that particular assumption throughout my life, and I found myself in life exercising over it. And I feel that I might be stuck. It is frustrating for me. And I want to get out of this debt and interest. What would I do? I would simply change the assumption in my own mind. I do not go outside of the world to do it physically. The source of life, the only source of life is the moment in the mind, not in the physical world. So what kind of a moment in the mind? That I must remove the assumption that money is hard to earn. Money is only for the limited people. I cannot be worthy of the good fortune. I should remove these borrowed assumptions from my own mind. Now how can I do it? A change in thought is change in speech. A change in speech is change in action. A change in action is change in habit. A change in habit is change in personality. A change in personality is the change in destiny. So I must change my mind. So I would, if I were you, I want to earn all the wealth of the money, or maybe of this world, and I found myself under a debt, what would I do? I would create an inner assumption, just an assumption, plain simple word assumption, no physical movement whatsoever. I'm not telling you about doing something outside yourself. No, inside of you. I would change my assumption about life. I would every morning, every day and every night, with the feeling, I would say to my own self, not maybe with the words, but in my own mind, my inner conversation, that I am worthy of all the wealth I desire. Money is the very easy thing to get by. Money always follow me. If you want to become an entrepreneur, I am the businessman. I am a successful, wealthy businessman. I would carry this mental assumption in my own mind. Maybe in the first few days I will not see any kind of a proof around me. But if your scripture is true, which I have proven to be in my own experience, I have repeated this again and again and again, not with money, not with this, but everything. I would carry an internal assumption inside of me that I am the person that I wish to be. Because in the Bible it is said, if you pray, whatever you ask in prayers, believe that you have it and you will. Not you shall, not you can, not you may, but you will. But believe that you have it, whatever you ask in prayers. So if I ask in prayers that I am the person I wish to be, that I am the person who's wealthy enough, if I am the person who's CEO of the company, whatever the thing it is, maybe in the relationship, You don't have to find a partner. All you have to assume that you are always the loved one. Maybe in the relationships, maybe in the health. I'm feeling some pain in my chest. The doctor said, you have to do this kind of a particular medication course for next 6 months. That is the fact of life. If I were you, I would create an internal conversation in me, an assumption about myself which I wish to experience. And this is not something I'm telling you to do extra. This is exactly what you have been doing your whole life. An assumption given to you by your own parents. You have not cross-checked it when you were a kid. You have believed it. That it takes so many years to earn this kind of a money. You have believed it. And you have put all your faith when you were a kid and when you were growing up into this particular statement. And this is becoming your exact life in which you are living. All I am telling you to do is the same. Pick an assumption about your life which you wish to experience in this life. It could be anything. And you put your complete faith in it. You consider this as a fact of your own life. Go beyond your own senses. And if your scripture is true, in your prayer, if you ask something, you believe that you have received it and you will. And I can promise you one thing, I have proven it in my own experience time again and again. So if I were you, I'll pick an assumption which I wish to experience in this life. And I create an internal conversation within me and I will live in it. That I am already the person which I wish to be. Only in the sense of feeling. I'm not telling you to exercise it physically because every physical effect has a spiritual cause. And that is your own movement in the mind itself. And that is life. So from the Bible, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have it and you will.